The train lurched to a stop at Thunder Creek Station on February 14, 1885, spilling Rose Catherine Whitmore onto a platform buried under 3 feet of Wyoming snow. She stumbled forward, her wedding dress torn at the hem, crusted with ice and something darker. Blood. Her blood dried brown against the white silk her mother had sewn in Boston 6 weeks ago, back when Rose still believed in fresh starts and second chances and men who kept their promises. In her coat pocket she carried 43 cents and a folded piece of paper. The paper bore 2 signatures. One read, Rose K. Whitmore, Boston, Massachusetts. The other, in careful script, claimed to be Cole Brennan, rancher, Thunder Creek, Wyoming Territory. That second signature was a lie. Rose had learned that particular truth 4 days ago, along with several other truths about marriage and men, and what happens when you trust the wrong words written on expensive paper. The station was empty, except for an old man sweeping snow from the platform. He looked up when Rose's knees buckled, catching herself against a wooden post. His eyes went to her face, to the bruise circling her left eye like a thumbprint pressed into overripe fruit, to the marks on her throat where fingers had squeezed until the world went dark, and then, mercifully, let go. "Where's the Brennan Ranch?" Rose asked. Her voice came out wrong, crushed, and hoarse. The voice of someone who had screamed until there was nothing left to scream with. The old man's broom stopped moving. "You looking for Cole Brennan?" "Yes." "You family?" "I'm his wife." Rose pulled the paper from her pocket, held it out with shaking fingers. "According to this, anyway." The old man took the paper, squinted at it, handed it back. "Ma'am, I've known Cole Brennan since he was knee-high to a grasshopper. He lost his wife Anna 2 years back. He ain't sent for no mail-order bride. He barely leaves that ranch except to sell wool and buy supplies." Rose looked at the paper in her hand. At the signature she'd believed was real when she boarded the train in Boston with her last $17 and a carpetbag full of everything she owned. At the address that had brought her to Thunder Creek instead of to Cole Brennan. At the careful handwriting that belonged to Victor Ashford Sterling, the man who had met her at this very station 3 weeks ago with flowers and a smile and a lie about Cole Brennan catching fever and sending his banker friend to collect his bride instead. The old man was watching her with the careful wariness of someone who had seen too many desperate women arrive on trains and not nearly enough of them leave again. "The Brennan Ranch," Rose repeated. She straightened, locked her knees, refused to fall. "Which direction?" 6 miles west." The old man pointed with his broom handle. "Follow the main road past the church, past the schoolhouse, past the turnoff for Sterling Manor. You'll see the fence posts with the B brand burned in. But, ma'am, if you're in some kind of trouble—" Rose was already walking. She made it to the edge of the platform before the wind hit her, February wind that cut through torn silk like it wasn't there at all. She'd lost her coat 3 days ago when Victor locked her in the hunting cabin 15 miles north of town. She'd traded it for kindling, burned it piece by piece to keep from freezing, and then she'd walked. Crawled sometimes when the cold made her legs stop working. But she'd walked the last mile into Thunder Creek standing upright because she'd sworn to herself that whatever else Victor Sterling took from her, he would not take her ability to walk through a door on her own 2 feet. The main road was buried under snow. Rose's boots, city boots made for cobblestones, not Wyoming winters, broke through the crust with each step. Her feet were numb past the ankle. That was a mercy. She focused on the church steeple in the distance, a dark spike against the white sky, and she walked. She passed the church. White clapboard, simple cross, graveyard to the left, with headstones tilted like crooked teeth. She passed the schoolhouse, larger than she'd expected, smoke rising from the chimney. Children's voices leaked through the walls, reciting something in unison. Arithmetic, maybe, or Bible verses. She passed a sign that read, Sterling Manor, 2 miles, with an arrow pointing north up a narrow road that disappeared into pine trees. Rose did not look up that road. She kept walking west. The Brennan fence posts appeared through the snow like soldiers standing guard. They were rough-cut pine, 8 feet tall, with a bee burned deep into the wood. The ranch house sat another half-mile back from the road, a low structure built from logs and river stone, smoke rising from 2 chimneys. There was a barn to the left, a chicken coop to the right, and between them a man splitting wood in his shirt sleeves despite the cold. He didn't notice Rose until she was 20 feet away. Then he straightened, setting the axe aside, and turned to face her. He was tall, early 30s, with dark hair and a beard he kept trimmed close. His hands were scarred across the knuckles. His eyes were blue, or maybe gray. It was hard to tell in the flat winter light. They held neither curiosity nor judgment, just careful assessment. "Help you?" he asked. Rose opened her mouth. Nothing came out. She tried again, forced air past her damaged throat. "Are you Cole Brennan?" "I am. I'm Rose Whitmore." She pulled the paper from her pocket one more time, unfolded it with fingers that barely worked. "From Boston. I came to be your wife." Cole Brennan looked at the paper. He didn't take it from her. He just looked, his expression unchanging, and then he looked at Rose's face. At the bruises, at the torn dress, at her bare hands, white with cold and streaked with blood where the skin had cracked open. "I didn't send for a wife," he said. "I know that now." "Who did you come for?" "A man named Victor Sterling told me you were sick, that you'd sent him to collect me from the station, that you needed a wife to help with your daughter and the ranch." She stopped, swallowed against the pain. "He lied about all of it." Cole's jaw tightened. His hands curled into fists at his sides, then deliberately uncurled. "How long ago?" 3 weeks. Rose's knees gave out. She didn't fall so much as fold, dropping into the snow like a puppet with cut strings. "I married him. Legal ceremony, reverend, and witnesses and signed papers. I didn't know it was wrong until the wedding night when he locked the door and—" She couldn't finish. She didn't need to. Cole Brennan was already moving, covering the distance between them in 3 strides. He knelt in the snow, not touching her, just close enough that she could see the scar through his left eyebrow and the silver starting at his temples. "Can you stand?" "I walked 6 miles. I can stand." "Let me help you to the house. I can walk." She couldn't. When she tried to push herself up, her arms gave out and she pitched forward. Cole caught her, his hands careful around her shoulders, supporting her weight without grabbing. He lifted her the way you'd lift something broken that needed carrying, and Rose was too cold and too tired to protest. The house was warm. Cole shouldered through the door, calling out as he entered. "Lily, get Doc Hayes. Tell him it's urgent." A girl appeared from a back room, maybe 8 years old, with dark braids and her father's serious eyes. She looked at Rose, at the blood and bruises and torn dress, and her face went very still. "Is she dying?" "No." Cole set Rose down in a chair by the fireplace, grabbed a quilt from the back of the sofa, wrapped it around her shoulders. "But she's hurt bad. Doc needs to see her." Lily was already pulling on her coat, lacing her boots. She was out the door in 30 seconds, running through the snow toward town. Cole knelt in front of Rose, not touching, just there. He had kind eyes. That was the first thing Rose noticed, now that she had the chance to notice anything. Kind eyes in a hard face, the face of a man who had learned to expect the worst and been proven right too many times. "What's your name?" he asked. "Rose Catherine Whitmore." "How old are you?" 26. "Where are you hurt?" "Everywhere." Rose tried to smile, failed. 3 ribs broken, I think, left side. He kicked me there, and my throat. He strangled me twice. Once on the wedding night, once 3 days ago before he left me in the cabin. "What cabin?" "The hunting cabin, 15 miles north. He said I could stay there until I learned to behave." She pulled the quilt tighter. "There wasn't any food, no firewood. He took my coat when he left." "How long were you there?" 4 days, maybe 5. I lost track." Cole's hands flexed against his knees. "How'd you get out?" "I broke a window, cut my hands on the glass. Then I walked." She looked at him, really looked, searching his face for the signs she'd missed with Victor. The rage hidden behind charm, the cruelty dressed up as concern. She didn't see it in Cole Brennan. She saw anger, yes, But it was clean anger, the kind that rose up when something wrong needed fixing, not the kind that enjoyed causing pain. "You said Victor Sterling did this," Cole said carefully. "Yes, the banker. He told me he was a banker." Rose coughed, tasted copper. "I found out later he's more than that. I heard him talking to men, rough men. They brought crates marked machine parts, but they rattled like metal. Guns, I think." "He's selling guns to someone. Did he know you heard?" "No, I was in the attic. He thought I was sleeping. But he must have suspected because the next morning he asked if I'd been snooping. I said no." She touched her throat. He didn't believe me. The door opened. Lily returned with an older man, 60 plus, carrying a black medical bag. He had the careful hands of someone who'd set bones and stitched wounds and told families their loved ones wouldn't make it through the night. He took one look at Rose and his expression went flat. "Jesus, Mary and Joseph." He set his bag on the table, rolled up his sleeves. "Cole, get water boiling. Lily, honey, go to your room. I want to help." "Not with this." The doctor's voice was gentle but firm. "Go on now." Lily went, casting one last look at Rose before disappearing down the hall. The doctor knelt where Cole had been kneeling. "I'm Samuel Hayes. I've been doctoring in Thunder Creek for 30 years. I need to examine you, ma'am. I'll be as gentle as I can, but it's going to hurt." Rose nodded. Doc Hayes worked in silence, his hands quick and professional. He checked her ribs, pressing carefully through the torn dress. Listened to her breathing, examined her throat, the bruises there layered in shades of purple and yellow and green. Looked at her hands, the cuts across her palms from the broken window, the fingernails torn down to the quick. When he finished, he sat back on his heels. 3 ribs cracked, not broken clean. "You're lucky there. Shoulders wrenched, but not dislocated. Throats bruised deep, but your windpipe's intact. The cuts will heal if we keep them clean." He paused. "You're malnourished. How long since you ate?" "I don't remember. 3 days? 4? You need food. Broth first, nothing heavy, and rest. Lots of rest." He looked at Cole. "She can't be moved. Not for a week at least. She can stay here," Cole said from the kitchen. He was pouring hot water into a basin, adding soap. "As long as she needs." Rose's eyes burned. She blinked hard, refusing to let the tears fall. She'd cried enough in Victor Sterling's house. She wouldn't waste any more tears. "Thank you," she managed. Doc Hayes packed his bag. "I'll be back tomorrow to check on you." He looked at Cole. "You know Sterling's going to come looking for her. I know. You know what he is. I know that too. There's talk in town. People saying things they shouldn't say out loud. About Grace Sterling." Cole's expression didn't change. "I've heard the talk." "Grace Sterling was Victor's first wife," Doc said, looking at Rose now. "Died 2 years ago. Fell down the stairs. Official story. Broke her neck. I did the examination." He stopped, choosing his words carefully. "It didn't look like a fall to me." "What did it look like?" Rose asked. "Like she was pushed." The room went quiet. Outside, wind rattled the windows. A log shifted in the fireplace, sending up sparks. "There were others," Doc continued, "before Grace. 3 other women, all mail-order brides, all disappeared or died in accidents. Sarah Combs, in 82, drowned in the creek. Mary Lowell, in 83, thrown from a horse. Grace, in 83, fell down the stairs." He looked at Rose. "You would have been the 5th. Rose's hands tightened in the quilt. Why hasn't anyone stopped him? Doc's face was grim. "Victor Sterling owns half this town. He holds mortgages on most of the businesses. The sheriff, the judge, the reverend, they all owe him money. Who's going to speak up against a man who can take your house, your livelihood, your future?" He stood, picked up his bag. "But that doesn't make it right. And it doesn't mean we should stop trying." After Doc left, Cole brought Rose a cup of broth. Chicken, salt, nothing fancy. She drank it slowly, feeling warmth spread through her chest for the first time in days. "You can have the bed," Cole said. "I'll sleep in the barn." "You don't have to do that. I'm not putting you in a room with a man you don't know, not after what you've been through." Rose looked at him. At this stranger who'd taken her in, called the doctor, offered his bed without asking for anything in return. "You're not like him." "No, ma'am, I'm not. I don't understand men like you." Cole was quiet for a long moment. His eyes went to the window, to the snow falling thick now, covering the world in white. "Maybe you don't need to understand. Maybe you just need to accept that some folks help because it's right, not because they want something back." He looked back at Rose. 2 years ago, I lost my wife Anna to fever, sat by her bed and watched her die, couldn't do a damn thing to stop it. If there's a woman in trouble now and I can help, I'm going to help. That's all there is to it. Is that the only reason? Cole almost smiled. That and Lily would never forgive me if I turned away someone who needed help. My daughter's got more conscience than sense sometimes. She seems like a good girl. She's the best thing I ever did. He picked up the empty cup. "You should sleep now. I'll be in the barn if you need anything." Lily sleeps down the hall. "Door doesn't lock, but you can wedge a chair under it if it makes you feel safer." Rose did exactly that. She wedged the chair, crawled into the bed still wearing the torn wedding dress because she had nothing else, and pulled the quilts up to her chin. The bed smelled like pine soap and wool. Clean smells. Safe smells. She slept for 14 hours straight. When she woke, sunlight was streaming through the window, and Lily was sitting in the chair Rose had wedged against the door, reading a book. The girl looked up when Rose stirred. "Papa said not to wake you, but I can get you food if you're hungry." Rose sat up slowly, testing her ribs. They screamed in protest but held. "I'm hungry." Lily disappeared, returned 5 minutes later with a tray. More broth, this time with bread and butter. Rose ate while Lily watched, her serious eyes taking in every detail. "Are you really married to that bad man?" Lily asked finally. "Legally, yes. Are you going back to him?" "No." "Good." Lily's chin lifted. "Papa won't let him take you." "Papa's strong. He doesn't lose fights." "Has he had many fights?" "Only when people need protecting. There was a man once who was mean to his horse. Papa made him stop. Broke his nose doing it. The man left town." She said it with simple pride, the way children speak of parents they believe can fix anything. Rose finished eating. She needed to get up, needed to move, needed to figure out what came next. She couldn't stay in Cole Brennan's bed forever, using his charity and putting his family in danger. She stood, wobbled, caught herself against the bedpost. Lily jumped up, steadying her. "Easy. You're still hurt. I need to use the privy. It's out back. I'll show you." Outside, the world was blinding white. The storm had passed, leaving 3 feet of fresh snow and a sky so blue it hurt to look at. Rose made it to the privy and back with Lily's help, her legs shaking by the time they reached the house again. Cole was in the kitchen when they came in, frying eggs. He glanced at Rose, took in her pallor, and pointed at a chair. "Sit before you fall." Rose sat. She watched him cook, his movements efficient and practiced. A man who'd been managing a household on his own for 2 years. "How old's your daughter?" Rose asked. 8, born in 77. Your wife raised her well. Anna did her best." Cole set a plate in front of Rose. 2 eggs, bacon, more bread. After Anna died, Lily and I had to figure things out together. Some days we do better than others. You're doing fine." Cole looked at her, something unreadable in his eyes. "You always this generous with your opinions about strangers?" "Only strangers who save my life." "I didn't save anything. Doc Hayes did the doctoring. You could have turned me away. Most men would have." Cole sat down across from her with his own plate. "I'm not most men." They ate in silence. Rose finished half the eggs before her stomach protested. She pushed the plate away, frustrated by her own weakness. "It'll take time," Cole said. "You can't rush healing." "I don't have time." Rose met his eyes. "Victor's going to come looking for me. You know that." "I know. When he does, I can't be here. I won't put you and Lily in danger." "Where will you go?" "I don't know." She looked at her hands, at the cuts that were starting to scab over. I have 43 cents and no skills that anyone here would pay for. I was a shopkeeper's daughter in Boston. I can read and write and do arithmetic. I can keep ledgers. But I can't cook worth a damn. I can't sew more than a straight hem. And I've never done farm work in my life. Can you teach? Rose looked up. What? Can you teach? Reading, writing, arithmetic? The schoolhouse in town needs a teacher. Last one left in December headed back east. Reverend Webb's been looking for someone, but there aren't many educated women in Thunder Creek. I've never taught before. But you can read and write and do arithmetic. That's more than most folks here can say. Cole pushed his plate aside. Pays not much. $20 a month plus room at the boarding house. But it's honest work, and it'd give you a way to stay without anyone questioning why. You'd do that? Help me find work? I'd introduce you to Reverend Webb. You'd have to convince him yourself. Rose felt something crack open in her chest, some small, hard place that had been frozen solid since the train pulled into Thunder Creek Station. Hope, maybe, or just the absence of despair. Why are you helping me? She asked again. Cole stood, carried the plates to the wash basin. Because you walked 6 miles through a blizzard in a torn wedding dress rather than stay with a man who hurt you. Because you're sitting here planning your next move instead of falling apart. He turned to face her. Because I think you're stronger than you know, Rose Whitmore. And because Thunder Creek could use someone like you, someone like me, someone who doesn't quit. Rose thought about the cabin, the 4 days of cold and hunger and darkness. Thought about breaking the window with her bare hands, walking through snow that came up to her knees, refusing to lie down and die. Cole Brennan was right. She didn't quit. She wouldn't quit now. When can I meet Reverend Webb? She asked. Soon as you can walk to town without collapsing. Rose stood up. Her ribs screamed, her legs shook. She stayed on her feet. How's this? Cole almost smiled. That'll do. They walked to town the next day. Rose wore a dress Lily had pulled from a trunk, something that had belonged to Anna Brennan, and smelled like cedar and mothballs. It was too big in the shoulders, too short in the hem, but it was clean and whole, and that was enough. Thunder Creek wasn't much to look at. 1 main street, maybe a dozen buildings. General store, saloon, boarding house, church, schoolhouse, doctor's office, and at the north end, set back from the road like a threat, Sterling Manor. A 3-story house with white columns and black shutters and smoke rising from 4 chimneys. Rose didn't look at it. She kept her eyes forward, focused on the church steeple. They found Reverend Webb in the church, sweeping the floor. He was 50-something, thin as a rail, with kind eyes and ink stains on his fingers. He straightened when Cole and Rose entered, setting the broom aside. Cole Brennan. It's been a while. Reverend? Cole took off his hat. I'm here about the teaching position. Webb's eyes went to Rose, taking in the bruises that were fading from purple to green, the careful way she held her left side. This is the candidate? This is Rose Whitmore. She's from Boston, educated, knows her letters and figures. She needs work and you need a teacher. Webb looked at Rose. Can you teach children? I can try. Ever taught before? No, sir. Why do you want to? Rose thought about lying, creating some story that would sound better than the truth. But there was something about Reverend Webb, something in his eyes that said he'd heard more confessions than most men and wouldn't judge her for being honest. Because I need to earn my own way, she said. Because I'm not going back to the man I left. Because I can read Emerson and do long division and diagram sentences, and if those skills can help children in this town, I'd like to use them. Webb was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. School starts at 8, ends at 3. 15 students ages 6 to 14. You'll teach reading, writing, arithmetic, history, and scripture on Fridays. Pays $20 a month. Can you start Monday? Rose's throat tightened. Yes, sir. Good. He picked up his broom again. There's a room at Martha O'Brien's boarding house. I'll let her know you're coming. They left the church and walked toward the boarding house, A two-story building with a sagging porch and paint peeling from the shutters. A woman stood on the porch, sweeping snow. She was maybe 60, built like a fence post, with gray hair pulled back in a bun so tight it looked painful. "Martha," Cole called out. "Got someone who needs a room." Martha stopped sweeping. Her eyes went to Rose, then to Cole, then back to Rose. She didn't smile. "Who is she?" "Rose Whitmore, new schoolteacher. Reverend Webb hired her this morning." "Where's she from?" "Boston." "She running from something?" "Yes, ma'am." Martha's expression didn't soften. "Is it going to follow her here?" Cole hesitated. Then he said quietly, "Maybe." "Will it be violent?" "Maybe that too." Martha looked at Rose for a long, measuring moment. Then she said, "Room's $2 a week, includes breakfast and supper. No men after 8. No drinking in the rooms. Privy's out back, washrooms downstairs. You break house rules, you're out. Understood?" "Yes, ma'am." "Good." Martha went back to sweeping. "Rooms upstairs, second door on the right. I'll have supper ready at 6. Rose climbed the stairs slowly, feeling every step in her ribs. The room was small, barely big enough for a bed and a washstand, but it had a window that looked out over Main Street and a door that locked from the inside. She stood at the window, looking down at Thunder Creek, at this town that had just given her a job and a room and a chance. Behind her, she heard footsteps. Cole appeared in the doorway, hat in his hands. "You did good," he said. "I haven't taught a single class yet. You stood in front of Reverend Webb and Martha O'Brien and told the truth. That's harder than teaching." He shifted his weight, uncomfortable. "I need to tell you something." Rose turned from the window. "What?" "Victor Sterling's going to find out you're here. Probably already has. Thunder Creek's too small for secrets. When he comes, and he will come, don't face him alone. Get to the sheriff, get to the church, get to my ranch. Anywhere with witnesses. I won't bring trouble to your door." "It's already at my door, Miss Whitmore. I owe Victor Sterling $800. Mortgage on my ranch." He holds the paper. Cole's jaw tightened. "If he wants to make things difficult for me, he's got plenty of leverage. But that doesn't mean I'm going to let him drag you back to whatever hell you escaped from." Rose's chest felt too tight. "Why? Why would you risk your ranch for me?" "Because it's the right thing to do." Cole put his hat on, turned to leave, then paused in the doorway. "And because Anna would have done the same if she were still here. She had a soft spot for people who needed help. Guess I inherited it." He left before Rose could respond. She stood at the window, watching him walk down Main Street toward his horse, and she thought about kindness and strangers and men who helped without asking for anything in return. She thought about Victor Sterling, about the husband who was still legally her husband, who owned half this town and would come looking for her with lawyers and papers and probably violence. And she thought about the schoolhouse, about 15 children who needed a teacher, about the chance to build something that was hers in a place where no one knew her as anything except Rose Whitmore, schoolteacher from Boston. She could do this. She would do this. The door bolt slid home with a solid click. She tested it 3 times to be sure, then wedged a chair under the handle anyway. Old habits died hard. That night Rose lay in the narrow bed at Martha O'Brien's boarding house and listened to the sounds of Thunder Creek settling into darkness. Horses in the livery, voices from the saloon, wind rattling the window glass. Somewhere in the distance a dog barked, and further away, up the road in a house with white columns and black shutters, Victor Ashford Sterling was wondering where his wife had gone. Rose knew he would come looking. Men like Victor always did. They didn't let go of things they considered theirs. But when he came, he wouldn't find the terrified girl who'd arrived at Thunder Creek Station in a torn wedding dress. He'd find a schoolteacher with a job and a locked door and a town that had, for reasons she didn't fully understand yet, decided to stand between her and the man who'd tried to break her. That would have to be enough. Rose closed her eyes and slept without dreaming. Tomorrow, she would teach her first class. Tomorrow she would start building a life that belonged to her and no one else. Tomorrow the real work would begin, but tonight, For the first time in 3 weeks, she was safe. Rose's first day teaching began at 7:30 on a Monday morning in late February when she walked into the Thunder Creek schoolhouse and found 15 pairs of eyes staring at her like she was something that had crawled out from under a rock. The children ranged from 6 to 14, scattered across wooden benches in 3 rows. The youngest sat up front, gap-toothed and squirming. The oldest slouched in back, arms crossed, faces closed. They'd been without a teacher for 2 months. They'd learned to expect nothing, and they weren't about to be disappointed by some stranger from Boston with bruises still fading on her throat. Rose set her books on the desk. The bruises were lighter now, yellow-green instead of purple, but still visible above her collar. She'd thought about wearing a scarf to hide them. Then she'd decided against it. These children would hear the stories about her eventually. Better they see the truth first. "My name is Miss Whitmore," she said. Her voice was stronger now, the damage healing. "I'm from Boston. I've never taught school before, so we're going to figure this out together. If you can read, you'll help those who can't. If you understand arithmetic, you'll help those who don't. And if anyone tries to tell you that you're too poor or too stupid or too anything to learn, you tell them Miss Whitmore said they're wrong." A hand went up in the front row. A girl, maybe 7, with blonde braids and Cole Brennan's serious eyes. "Yes, I'm Lily Brennan. My papa brought you here." "He did. Are you really married to Mr. Sterling?" The room went dead silent. Every child stopped moving, stopped breathing, waiting for Rose's answer. In the back row, a boy maybe 12 years old leaned forward, his eyes sharp and watchful. Rose could have lied, could have said it was complicated, or none of their business, or changed the subject to multiplication tables. Instead, she said, "Yes, I married Victor Sterling 3 weeks ago in a ceremony at his house. I didn't know who he really was until after the wedding. When I found out, I left. That's why I'm here." The 12-year-old boy in the back spoke up. His voice cracked halfway through, caught between childhood and whatever came after. "My pa says you're going to bring trouble to Thunder Creek." "Your pa might be right," Rose said, "but trouble's already here. It's been here a long time. I'm just the first person to say it out loud." She turned to the chalkboard, picked up a piece of chalk, wrote the alphabet in careful script. "We're going to start with reading. Anyone who knows their letters, raise your hand." 6 hands went up. 9 children sat with their hands in their laps, staring at the board like it was written in a language they'd never learn. Rose spent the morning teaching letters to the youngest children while the older ones worked on penmanship. At noon, the children scattered for lunch, most of them running home to eat, a few pulling bread and cheese from tin pails. Rose sat at her desk and ate the biscuit Martha O'Brien had wrapped in cloth that morning, watching through the window as Lily Brennan shared her lunch with a small boy who didn't seem to have brought anything. The boy was maybe 6, thin as a willow branch, with dark hair and eyes that looked too old for his face. He ate Lily's bread slowly, carefully, like someone who'd learned not to waste food. When he finished, Lily gave him half her apple. He took it without saying thank you, but his eyes said everything his mouth didn't. Rose filed that away, a child who was hungry, a child who took charity without speaking, a child who needed watching. The afternoon passed in a blur of arithmetic and spelling. By 3 o'clock, Rose's ribs were screaming, and her throat felt like she'd swallowed broken glass. She dismissed the children, watched them scatter into the February cold, and then she sat at her desk and put her head in her hands. She'd done it. One day. 15 children. No disasters. The door opened. Rose looked up, expecting Martha O'Brien or Reverend Webb. Instead, she saw the 12-year-old boy from the back row. He stood in the doorway, hands shoved in his pockets, looking everywhere except at Rose. "Forget something?" Rose asked. The boy shook his head. He stepped inside, closed the door behind him. Up close, Rose could see the resemblance. Same dark hair as the hungry 6-year-old, same 2 old eyes. "That little boy at lunch," Rose said. "The one Lily shared with. He's your brother?" "Yeah, Tommy. The boy's voice cracked again. He's 6. What's your name? Joseph Walsh. Everyone calls me Joey. You live in town, Joey? Above the general store. Pa runs it. He looked at Rose directly for the first time. She saw fear in his eyes, not fear of her. Fear of something bigger. Ma'am, I need to tell you something, but if I tell you, you can't say I told you. Rose set down her chalk. I'm listening. Joey glanced at the door, making sure it was closed. 2 years ago, I was coming home late from fishing. It was dark, maybe 9 or 10 at night. I cut through the alley behind Sterling Manor because it's faster than going around. He stopped, swallowed hard. I saw something through the window. Mr. Sterling and a woman. They were arguing. She was crying. He grabbed her arm. She pulled away, and then he pushed her. Hard. I saw her fall backward down the stairs. I heard the sound her head made when it hit the bottom. Rose's blood went cold. Grace Sterling. Joey nodded. Next day, everyone said Mrs. Sterling fell down the stairs by accident. Doc Hayes said her neck broke. They buried her in the church cemetery with a stone that says, "Beloved wife." But it wasn't an accident, ma'am. I saw him push her. Did you tell anyone? Joey's eyes filled. I told my pa. He said I must have been seeing things in the dark. He said the Sterlings were good people, and good people don't push their wives downstairs. He said if I went around telling stories like that, Mr. Sterling could take our store. He holds the mortgage on it. $500. Pa can't pay it back, not all at once. So he told me to keep my mouth shut. How old were you? 10. Rose looked at this boy, this child who'd been carrying a man's secret for 2 years, who'd watched his father choose financial security over truth, who'd learned that justice was a luxury poor people couldn't afford. Do you still remember what you saw? Every detail? Yes, ma'am. I dream about it sometimes. I see her falling, and I hear that sound, and I wake up knowing I should have done something. You were 10 years old. You couldn't have stopped him. I could have told the sheriff. Could have told someone besides Pa, Joey. Rose leaned forward, met his eyes. You're telling someone now. That takes courage. And when the time comes, when there's a way to make this right, I'm going to need you to be brave again. Can you do that? The boy's jaw set. Yes, ma'am. Good. Rose stood up, her ribs protesting. Go home. Take care of your brother. And Joey, don't tell your father we talked. I won't. After Joey left, Rose sat in the empty schoolhouse and thought about Grace Sterling falling down the stairs, about 3 other women before her, Sarah and Mary, and someone else whose name Rose didn't know yet, about Victor's hands around her own throat, squeezing until the world went dark, about the pattern of it all, the deliberate elimination of women who'd seen too much or asked too many questions or tried to leave. She pulled a piece of paper from her desk drawer, dipped a pen in ink, and began to write. Names, dates, everything she knew. Sarah Combs, 1882, drowned. Mary Lowell, 1883, thrown from horse. Grace Sterling, 1883, pushed downstairs. Rose Whitmore, 1885, abandoned in hunting cabin to die of exposure. 4 women, 4 attempts, 3 dead, 1 survived. Rose folded the paper, tucked it inside her Bible, and locked the schoolhouse door behind her. The walk back to the boarding house took 10 minutes. The sun was setting, turning the snow orange and pink. Rose's shadow stretched ahead of her, long and thin. She was watching her shadow when she heard hoofbeats behind her. She turned. 3 riders coming down Main Street, moving slow. The one in front sat tall in the saddle, wearing a coat that cost more than most people in Thunder Creek earned in a year. Even from a distance, Rose recognized the shape of him, the way he held the reins, the tilt of his head. Victor Sterling. Rose's first instinct was to run. Her second was to scream. She did neither. She stood in the middle of the street, spine straight, and watched her husband ride toward her. Victor pulled his horse to a stop 10 feet away. The 2 men with him, hired muscle with guns on their hips, flanked him, like wolves guarding their pack leader. Victor dismounted slowly, deliberately, his boots crunching in the snow. He smiled. It was the same smile he'd worn when he met her at the train station 3 weeks ago. Warm, concerned, the smile of a man who cared deeply. "Rose," he said. "Thank God. I've been so worried." His voice carried down the street. Doors opened. Windows filled with faces. Victor had timed this perfectly, chosen the moment when the most people would see him play the devoted husband searching for his troubled wife. Rose didn't move, didn't speak. Victor took a step closer. "Darling, please come home. Whatever happened, whatever you think I did, we can work through it. I love you." He reached for her hand. His fingers were soft, manicured, the hands of a man who'd never done manual labor in his life, the same hands that had closed around her throat. Rose pulled back. "Don't touch me." Victor's smile flickered, just for a second, just long enough for Rose to see the rage underneath. Then it was back, perfect and practiced. "You're not well. Doc Morrison examined you before the wedding, remember? He said you were prone to nervous episodes, female hysteria. It runs in families sometimes. I am not hysterical. Of course not." Victor's voice was soothing, patronizing, the voice of someone speaking to a child. "But you're confused. You ran away in the middle of a storm. You could have died." He gestured to the crowd gathering on the boardwalk. "Ask anyone here. Ask Doc Hayes. He'll tell you the same thing. You need rest. You need care. You need to come home where I can take care of you." Rose felt the weight of eyes on her. The whole town watching, judging, deciding whether to believe the wealthy banker with the concerned expression or the stranger from Boston with bruises on her throat. Then a door opened. Cole Brennan stepped out of the general store, Lily at his side. He looked at Victor, at Rose, at the 2 hired guns still mounted on their horses. His hand rested casually on his belt, inches from the pistol he wore. "Evening, Sterling," Cole said. His voice was flat, empty of emotion. "Didn't expect to see you in town today." Victor's jaw tightened. "Brennan, I'm here for my wife. She doesn't look like she wants to go with you. She's not well. She doesn't know what she wants." Cole walked down the steps, positioned himself between Rose and Victor. "Looks to me like she knows exactly what she wants. You might want to respect that. This is a private family matter. You made it public when you rode down Main Street with an audience." Victor's eyes went cold. The mask slipped further. "You're in debt to me, Brennan. $800. That ranch of yours, that land your father built, it all belongs to me if you can't pay. You really want to make an enemy of me over some woman you barely know?" Cole didn't flinch. "The debt's real, but it doesn't give you the right to drag anyone anywhere against their will. Rose Whitmore is a free citizen. She's got a job teaching school. She's got a room at Martha O'Brien's boarding house. She's staying in Thunder Creek because she wants to, not because you say she can't." Victor looked past Cole to Rose. His eyes held a promise. This isn't over. Then he mounted his horse, jerked the reins hard enough to make the animal dance sideways, and rode north toward Sterling Manor. His 2 hired guns followed, looking back over their shoulders like they expected trouble to follow them. The street stayed quiet for a long moment after they disappeared. Then Martha O'Brien stepped off the boarding house porch, walked straight to Rose and said, "You're staying for supper." No arguments. Rose's throat was too tight to speak. She just nodded. That night, sitting at Martha's table with a bowl of stew she could barely taste, Rose learned that Thunder Creek had secrets deeper than she'd imagined. Martha set a cup of coffee in front of Rose, poured one for herself, and sat down heavily. Her eyes were tired, her face lined with years of hard living. She looked at Rose for a long moment, then said, "I knew Grace Sterling." Rose set down her spoon. "Not well," Martha continued, "but enough to know she wasn't clumsy. Grace was a dancer before she married Victor. Ballet, back east somewhere. She had balance like a cat. She didn't just fall downstairs." She wrapped both hands around her coffee cup. "I should have said something when she died. Should have asked questions. But I owed Victor $200 on this boarding house. He could have taken it from me with a word, so I kept my mouth shut and hated myself for it. "You're not the only one who stayed quiet," Rose said softly. "I know, that's the problem." Martha's eyes were fierce. "Half this town owes Victor Sterling money. Sheriff Dalton owes him $300 for his wife's medicine. Doc Hayes owes him $400 from when his practice was struggling. Reverend Webb owes him $100 for church repairs. Victor's got everyone by the throat, financial, if not literal." She paused. "But owing him money doesn't make us right for staying silent when women die." "How many women?" Rose asked. "Before Grace?" Martha's face went grim. "3 that I know of for certain. Sarah Combs came in '82. Mail-order bride, drowned in the creek 6 months after she arrived. Everyone said she went walking too close to the bank and slipped. But Sarah was from Maine. She grew up around water. She knew how to swim. Mary Lowell came in '83, another bride, thrown from a horse 3 months after the wedding. Victor said the horse spooked. But Mary worked in stables back in Ohio. She knew horses. And the third? Before my time, but I heard stories. A woman named Ruth something, 1880, maybe 81, found dead in the woods. Animal attack, they said. But there were marks on her that didn't look like any animal I ever heard of." Rose's hands shook. She set her cup down before she dropped it. "He's done this 4 times, 5 if you count me, and he'll do it again if someone doesn't stop him." "How?" Rose's voice came out harsh, desperate. "He owns half the town. He's got lawyers and money and judges in his pocket. Who's going to stand against that?" Martha looked at her. "You are. I'm one woman with 43 cents and a teaching job. You're the one who survived. That makes you dangerous." Martha leaned forward. "Grace wrote things down. I know she did because she asked me once if I had extra paper and ink, said she was keeping a journal. Victor probably burned it after she died, but maybe not. Maybe he missed something. If there's evidence, if there's proof of what he is, we can take it to the federal marshals. They don't answer to Victor Sterling. Where would Grace have kept a journal? Somewhere Victor wouldn't look. Somewhere safe." Martha thought for a moment. "There's a woman in town. Eliza Hartman runs the dress shop. She and Grace were close, closer than most people knew. If Grace trusted anyone with her secrets, it would be Eliza." Rose stood up, her ribs protesting. "I'll talk to her tomorrow. Be careful. Victor's watching you now. He won't let you dig into his past without pushing back." "Let him push." Rose's voice was hard. "I've been pushed before. I'm still standing." That night Rose lay in her narrow bed and listened to the sounds of Thunder Creek settling into darkness. Somewhere in this town, maybe in Eliza Hartman's dress shop or hidden in a place no one had thought to look, there was a journal written by a dead woman, a journal that might hold the truth about Victor Sterling and the women he'd killed. Rose was going to find it. And when she did, she was going to make sure Victor Sterling paid for every life he'd taken, every woman he'd hurt, every person he'd silenced with money and threats and violence. But first, she had to survive long enough to do it. The next morning, Rose walked to the dress shop on her lunch break. It was a small building wedged between the general store and the barber shop, with a hand-painted sign that read, "Hartman's Fine Clothing." Through the window, Rose could see bolts of fabric stacked on shelves, a sewing machine in the corner, and a woman bent over a piece of cloth, her needle moving with practiced precision. Rose pushed open the door. A bell chimed. The woman looked up. Eliza Hartman was maybe 30, with auburn hair pinned in a simple bun and eyes that assessed Rose in one quick glance. She saw the fading bruises, the careful way Rose moved, and her expression shuddered. "Help you?" Her voice was neutral, giving nothing away. "I need a dress." Rose gestured at the one she wore, Anna Brennan's hand-me-down that was too big and too short. "Something that fits properly." "I can do that." Eliza set down her sewing, pulled out a tape measure. "Stand over here in the light." Rose stood still while Eliza measured her shoulders, her waist, her hips. The woman worked in silence, professional and distant. When she finished, she wrote the numbers in a small notebook, then looked at Rose directly for the first time. "You're the new school teacher, Rose Whitmore." "Yes. You're also Victor Sterling's wife." "Legally." "Not by choice." Eliza's hands tightened on the notebook. "What do you want, Miss Whitmore?" "The truth." Rose kept her voice low. "I know Grace Sterling was your friend. I know she didn't fall down those stairs by accident. And I know she wrote things down, things Victor wouldn't want anyone to see. I need that journal, Miss Hartman. I need proof of what he is." Eliza's face went pale. She glanced at the door, at the window, at the back room. When she spoke, her voice shook. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do." Rose stepped closer. "Grace trusted you. She gave you something, didn't she? Something she wanted kept safe in case anything happened to her. Even if that were true, which I'm not saying it is, why would I give it to you? You're his wife. For all I know, he sent you here to find out what I know. If Victor sent me, I wouldn't have these." Rose pulled down her collar, showed Eliza the marks on her throat. The bruises had faded, but the pattern of fingers was still visible, pressed into her skin like a blueprint of violence. "He did this because I heard him talking about guns. He locked me in a cabin and left me to freeze to death. I survived by breaking a window with my bare hands and walking 6 miles through snow. Does that sound like someone working for Victor Sterling?" Eliza stared at Rose's throat. Her eyes filled. She turned away, walked to the window, looked out at the street. When she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. "Grace came to me 3 days before she died. She was terrified. She said she'd found something in Victor's office, papers about gun sales to people who shouldn't have guns. She said if Victor found out she knew, he'd kill her. I told her to leave, told her to take the train east and never come back. She said she couldn't. Said Victor would find her. Said he'd kill her family in Boston if she ran. Did she give you the journal?" Eliza nodded. "She made me promise to keep it hidden, made me swear that if anything happened to her, I'd make sure the truth came out." She looked at Rose, her face anguished, but I didn't. "When she died, when they buried her with that stone that says beloved wife, I kept the journal locked in a box, and I told myself it was too dangerous to use, that Victor would destroy anyone who tried to expose him. I told myself I was protecting people by staying quiet." She wiped her eyes. "I was protecting myself. I was a coward." "You're not a coward, you're scared. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Yes." Rose moved to stand beside Eliza at the window. "A coward would have burned the journal, destroyed the evidence, pretended it never existed. You kept it. That means part of you always knew there would come a day when it needed to be used. That day is now, Miss Hartman. Victor tried to kill me. He'll try again. And if I don't stop him, he'll find another mail-order bride, and the pattern will repeat. You can help me break that pattern. You can help me make Grace's death mean something." Eliza was quiet for a long time. Outside, people walked past the window, going about their business, living their lives in a town that looked peaceful but was rotting from the inside. Finally, Eliza said, "Come back tonight. After dark. Use the back door. I'll have it ready." Rose left the dress shop and walked back to the schoolhouse. Her hands were shaking, not from fear, from something else. Anticipation, maybe, or fury, finally finding a purpose. That night, Rose waited until Thunder Creek went dark. She slipped out of the boarding house at 10 o'clock, when Martha was asleep and the streets were empty. She walked quickly, staying in the shadows, until she reached the back door of the dress shop. She knocked twice, softly. The door opened immediately. Eliza stood there in her nightgown, holding an oil lamp. Her face was drawn, older than it had looked that morning. "Come in. Quick." Rose stepped inside. Eliza closed the door, locked it, led Rose to the back room where the sewing machine sat silent in the darkness. She set the lamp on a table, pulled a wooden box from under a pile of fabric scraps, and opened it with a key she wore on a chain around her neck. Inside the box was a leather-bound journal, no bigger than Rose's hand. Eliza lifted it out like it was made of glass. This is everything Grace wrote in the last 6 months of her life. Names, dates, amounts. Victor's whole operation. She handed it to Rose. "If he finds out you have this, he'll kill you. He's going to try to kill me anyway. At least this gives me a fighting chance." Rose opened the journal. Grace Sterling's handwriting was small and precise, filling every page. The entries started in May 1883 and ended 3 days before her death in November. Rose flipped through quickly, catching fragments. May 15th, found papers in Victor's office, bills of sale for rifles, 200 units, to a man named Blackhawk. Paid in gold. Victor says it's legitimate business, but the amounts don't match the bank records. June 3rd, another sale, 150 pistols. Buyer's name redacted from the paperwork. Victor caught me in his office, said I was snooping, grabbed my arm hard enough to bruise. August 10th, I know now what he's doing. He's selling guns to the tribes, to outlaws, to anyone with cash. It's illegal. It's treason. If the federal government finds out, he'll hang. I should go to the marshal, but I'm terrified. Victor said if I ever betrayed him, he'd make sure I disappeared like the others. The others. Rose's blood went cold. September 20th, I asked Eliza to keep this journal safe. If something happens to me, if I die in any kind of accident, it's not an accident. Victor has killed before. Sarah Combs knew about his business. Mary Lowell found out and threatened to tell. He made their deaths look natural. I won't be the last if someone doesn't stop him. The final entry was dated November 12, 1883. I'm leaving tomorrow. I have enough money saved. I'll take the morning train east and never come back. Victor suspects something. He's been watching me, following me. Tonight he asked where I was going and I lied, said I was visiting Eliza. He smiled, but his eyes were dead. I'm scared. If I don't make it to the train, if something happens, please let someone read this. Please don't let him win. Grace Sterling never made it to the train. She died that night, November 12th, pushed down the stairs in her own home by the man who'd promised to love and cherish her. Rose closed the journal. Her hands were steady now, her mind clear. This was proof, not just of Victor's violence against women, but of federal crimes, gun running, illegal sales, treason. This could destroy him. I need to make a copy, Rose said. Every page. If Victor gets the original, we need a backup. I have paper and ink. Eliza was already moving, pulling supplies from a drawer, but it'll take hours, maybe all night. Then we work all night. They did. Rose copied every page of Grace's journal in her own careful handwriting, while Eliza kept watch at the window. By the time the sun rose over Thunder Creek, Rose had 2 journals, the original, leather-bound, and filled with Grace's handwriting, and a copy, newer and rougher, but containing every word, every name, every date. Rose took the copy. I'll hide this somewhere Victor won't find it. You keep the original. If anything happens to me, you take it to the federal marshal in Cheyenne. What are you going to do? Rose tucked the copied journal inside her coat. I'm going to use this to buy time. And then I'm going to make sure Victor Sterling never hurts another woman again. She left the dress shop as the sun came up, exhausted and wired, and more dangerous than she'd been since arriving in Thunder Creek. She had evidence now. She had proof. She had a weapon. All she needed was the courage to use it. Rose hid the copied journal in the schoolhouse, tucked inside a hollowed-out dictionary on the top shelf where no child could reach it. Then she taught her classes, going through the motions of spelling and arithmetic while her mind worked through strategy. During afternoon recess, Rose noticed something she'd missed before. A small boy, maybe 6 years old, sat alone under a tree at the edge of the schoolyard. He wasn't playing with the other children. He was drawing in the dirt with a stick, his movements careful and repetitive. Rose walked over. The boy looked up, fear flashing in his dark eyes. He had bruises on his arms, half hidden under his sleeves. "What's your name?" Rose asked gently. The boy hesitated. "Daniel." "That's a good name. What are you drawing?" Daniel looked down at his dirt drawings. Houses, with locks on all the doors. Rose's chest tightened. She recognized that fear, that need for safety, drawn in dirt and imagination. Why locks on all the doors, Daniel? So the bad people can't get in. Who are the bad people? Daniel's eyes filled with tears. He stood up quickly, brushed the dirt from his knees, and ran toward the schoolhouse without answering. Rose watched him go, her mind connecting pieces. Dark hair. About 6 years old, fear that lived in his bones. After school, she asked Lily, that boy, Daniel, what's his last name? Lily's face went sad. Sterling. He's Mr. Sterling's son. Mama used to say Mrs. Grace loved that boy something fierce. After she died, people say Mr. Sterling got meaner. Tommy Walsh says he hears Daniel crying sometimes when he delivers groceries to Sterling Manor. Rose's hands clenched into fists. Victor wasn't just killing wives, he was destroying his own child. That night, as Rose wrote her letter to the marshal, she added one more line. There is a 6-year-old boy in Sterling Manor who needs protection. His name is Daniel Sterling. He is being harmed by his father. How to use the journal, who to trust with it, when to play her hand. The answer came at 3 o'clock when she dismissed the children and found Sheriff John Dalton waiting outside the schoolhouse, his hat in his hands and guilt written across his face. Miss Whitmore. Can I talk to you? Rose crossed her arms. About what? About Victor Sterling. Dalton looked at the ground, at the sky, anywhere but at Rose. I owe him money. $300 for medicine when my wife got sick last winter. He paid the doctor, paid for everything. Saved her life. He paused. Now he's calling in the debt. Says I need to bring you back to Sterling Manor or he'll take my house. Are you going to do it? Dalton finally met her eyes. No, ma'am. I took an oath to protect people. That oath means more than my house. He straightened his shoulders. But I wanted you to know what's coming. Victor's not going to stop. He's going to come for you himself, probably with those hired guns. When he does, I'll stand with you. I'll do what I should have done when Grace died. Rose's throat tightened. Thank you, Sheriff. Don't thank me yet. I haven't earned it. Dalton put his hat back on. Just be careful. Lock your doors. Don't go anywhere alone after dark. And if you see Victor coming, you run. You understand? Rose understood, but she also understood something else. She was done running. That night, Rose sat in her room at the boarding house and wrote a letter. Not to Victor, not to the sheriff. To the United States Marshal's office in Cheyenne, Wyoming Territory. She wrote about Grace Sterling and Sarah Combs and Mary Lowell. She wrote about gun sales and illegal transactions and a man who'd killed 4 women to protect his secrets. She wrote about a journal hidden in a dress shop and a copy hidden in a schoolhouse and a town too scared to speak up until now. She signed it Rose Catherine Whitmore, teacher, Thunder Creek, Wyoming Territory. Then she sealed it, addressed it, and walked to the post office in the morning before school. The postmaster, an old man named Ezra Polk, looked at the address and raised his eyebrows. Federal Marshal, huh? Yes, sir. This about Victor Sterling? Yes, sir. Ezra was quiet for a moment. Then he stamped the letter, marked it urgent, and said, This goes on tomorrow's mail coach. Should reach Cheyenne in 4 days. He looked at Rose. You got guts, Miss Whitmore. I'll give you that. Rose paid for the postage with money she couldn't afford to spend and walked to the schoolhouse feeling lighter than she had in weeks. The letter was sent. The evidence was documented. The wheels were turning. All she had to do now was survive long enough for them to catch up. Victor Sterling came for her on a Thursday afternoon, 6 days after Rose mailed the letter to Cheyenne. Victor Sterling came for Rose on a Thursday afternoon, 6 days after she'd mailed the letter to Cheyenne. School had just ended. The children were streaming out the door, their voices bright with the promise of freedom, when Rose looked up from her desk and saw him standing in the doorway. No hired guns this time, just Victor alone, wearing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. The children fell silent, even the youngest ones, The 6-year-olds who didn't understand politics or danger felt the shift in the air. They scattered past Victor like rabbits past a wolf, running for home, running for safety, running anywhere but here. Lily Brennan was the last to leave. She stopped in the doorway, looked at Rose, then at Victor. Her small hand tightened on her school bag. "Go on, Lily," Rose said. Her voice was steady. "Your father's waiting." Lily went, but she ran. Rose heard her boots pounding down the street, heard her calling for her papa, and she was grateful for it. Cole would come. The question was whether he'd arrive in time. Victor closed the door behind him. The sound of the latch clicking shut was very loud in the empty schoolhouse. "You've been busy," he said. His voice was conversational, pleasant, the voice of a man discussing the weather, asking questions, talking to people who should know better than to talk. "I've been teaching school. You've been poisoning this town against me." Victor walked down the aisle between the benches, his boots measured and deliberate. Running to Cole Brennan like some frightened child, whispering to Martha O'Brien, visiting Eliza Hartman's shop in the middle of the night. Rose's blood went cold. He'd been watching her. Of course he had. "And then," Victor continued, "you mailed a letter to the marshal's office in Cheyenne. The postmaster is a very helpful man when you pay him enough." Rose stood slowly, putting the desk between them. "Whatever you're planning, it won't work. People know I'm here. If I disappear, they'll come looking." "Will they?" Victor's smile widened. "You're a stranger, Rose. You've been in Thunder Creek less than 3 weeks. Half the town thinks you're unstable. The other half thinks you're a troublemaker. If you vanish, most folks will assume you ran off again. Went back east, maybe, or took a train west. Women like you, they don't put down roots. They drift. I have a job. I have students. You had a job." Victor reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a folded paper. "This is a letter from Reverend Webb, terminating your employment effective immediately. Concerns about your mental state, your suitability for teaching children." He was very understanding when I explained the situation. "Your hysteria, your delusions, your unfortunate tendency to make wild accusations." Rose's hands curled into fists. "That's a lie. It's a signed document. In this territory, that makes it truth." Victor set the paper on the nearest bench. "Now here's what's going to happen. You're going to come with me quietly. We're going to ride back to Sterling Manor together. You're going to tell everyone you were confused, that you're sorry for causing trouble, that you want to reconcile with your loving husband. And then, once we're home, once the town has moved on to whatever scandal comes next, you're going to have a very unfortunate accident." Rose looked at the door. Too far. Victor was between her and escape. She looked at the window. Could she break it? Climb through before he reached her? Her ribs were still healing. She wasn't fast enough. "I know about Grace," Rose said. "About Sarah and Mary? About the guns you've been selling?" Victor's pleasant expression cracked. His eyes went flat and cold, reptilian. "What do you think you know?" "I know Grace kept a journal. I know she documented everything. Every sale, every buyer, every law you broke. I know she gave it to someone for safekeeping before you killed her." Victor took 3 quick steps forward, closing the distance. His hand shot out, grabbed Rose's wrist, squeezed until bones ground together. "Where is it?" Rose bit down hard on the inside of her cheek, using pain to stay focused. "Not here." "Where?" "Gone." "I already sent it to the marshal. Same letter you're so worried about. You're lying." "Am I?" Rose met his eyes. "Grace wrote about you pushing her down the stairs, about Joey Walsh seeing it through the window, about Doc Hayes knowing the injuries didn't match a fall. It's all documented, Victor. Every crime, every murder, every piece of evidence that's going to put a rope around your neck." Victor's grip tightened. Rose felt something in her wrist give way, a bright snap of pain that shot up her arm. She gasped, couldn't help it, and Victor's smile came back. "You stupid girl. Do you really think a journal will matter? I own this town. I own the sheriff, the judge, the doctor. I own every person who could testify against me. And even if the marshal comes, even if he investigates, it'll be my word against a dead woman's diary and the ravings of my mentally unstable wife. Then you have nothing to worry about." Rose's voice came out ragged, broken, Let me go. I'm not worried." Victor pulled her closer. "I'm angry. There's a difference. And you're going to pay for every moment of inconvenience you've caused me." The door slammed open. Cole Brennan stood in the doorway, chest heaving, rifle in his hands. Behind him, Sheriff Dalton, Reverend Webb, and a dozen townspeople crowded onto the schoolhouse steps. "Let her go, Sterling," Cole said. Victor didn't release Rose's wrist. "This is between me and my wife, Brennan. She's not your wife. She's a woman you kidnapped and tried to murder." Cole raised the rifle, sighted down the barrel. "I won't ask twice. You'll hang for this." Victor's voice was tight with rage. "You're threatening an unarmed man in front of witnesses. Those witnesses just heard you confess to planning another accident." Sheriff Dalton stepped into the schoolhouse, his hand on his pistol. "That's conspiracy to commit murder, Sterling. I'm taking you in." "On what authority?" Victor finally released Rose. She stumbled back, cradling her injured wrist. "You're in debt to me, Dalton. Your wife's medicine, remember?" "I remember." Dalton's jaw was set. "I also remember my oath. I chose the badge over the debt. If that cost me my house, so be it." Victor looked around the room, at the faces crowding the doorway. People he'd controlled with money and fear for years. They were scared still, Rose could see it in their eyes, but they weren't looking away. They were standing here. They were bearing witness. "You'll all regret this," Victor said. "Every last one of you. Maybe." Cole lowered the rifle slightly, but kept it ready. "But we'll regret staying silent more." Victor straightened his coat, smoothed his hair, rebuilt his mask of civility piece by piece. He looked at Rose one last time. "You think you've won. You haven't. The marshal won't come. And even if he does, he won't find anything. I've been very careful." "Grace was careful too," Rose said. "She wrote everything down, and I made sure it survived her." Victor's expression went blank. Then he walked past Cole, past the sheriff, past the crowd, and disappeared into the February afternoon. The room exhaled collectively. Rose's knees gave out. Cole caught her before she hit the floor, his arms strong and steady. "Easy. I've got you. My wrist." Rose's voice cracked. He broke something. Doc Hayes pushed through the crowd, his medical bag already open. "Let me see." Cole helped Rose into a chair. Doc Hayes examined her wrist with gentle hands, pressing carefully, testing range of motion. Rose hissed in pain. "Fractured," Doc said. "Not broken clean, but you'll need it splinted." He pulled bandages and a thin piece of wood from his bag. "This is going to hurt. It already hurts." Doc worked quickly, wrapping Rose's wrist tight, securing the splint. When he finished, he sat back and looked at her with something like respect. "You're either the bravest woman I've ever met or the most foolhardy. Maybe both. Probably both." Rose tried to smile, failed. "Is it over?" Doc glanced at Cole, at Sheriff Dalton. "Not yet." That night Rose stayed at the Brennan ranch. Martha O'Brien had offered her room at the boarding house, but Cole insisted. "If Sterling comes back, he's coming for you. You need to be somewhere defensible." The ranch house was small, but solid, built from logs that had weathered decades of Wyoming winters. Cole gave Rose his room again, took the barn for himself. Lily helped Rose change into a nightgown borrowed from the trunk of Anna's things, her small hands careful around the splint. "Does it hurt bad?" Lily asked. "Some." Rose settled into the bed, exhausted. "I've had worse. When my mama was sick, Papa slept in a chair by her bed every night." Lily smoothed the quilts. He didn't want her to be scared alone. "Are you scared?" "Yes, Papa won't let the bad man hurt you." Lily's voice was certain, absolute, the certainty of a child who still believed fathers could fix anything. He promised. After Lily left, Rose lay in the darkness and thought about promises. About the ones Victor had made and broken. About the ones Cole was trying to keep. About the ones she'd made to herself that day in the hunting cabin, when she'd burned her wedding dress for warmth and sworn that if she survived, she would never be helpless again. She'd survived. But the fight wasn't over. 4 days later, on a Monday morning when spring was just beginning to think about replacing winter, a man rode into Thunder Creek on a gray horse. He wore a long coat and a silver star pinned to his vest. United States Marshal Thomas Riddick, out of Cheyenne, come to investigate allegations of illegal arms dealing, murder, and conspiracy. Cole rode into town to fetch Rose. She was at the schoolhouse, teaching a class that Reverend Webb had quietly reinstated after Victor's public threats made it clear whose side he should be on. Rose dismissed the children early, told them to go straight home, and climbed onto Cole's horse. They rode together, Rose's injured wrist cradled against her chest, neither of them speaking. The weight of what was coming sat between them like a third passenger. Marshal Riddick had set up operations in the sheriff's office. He was maybe 50, with gray at his temples and eyes that had seen too many bad men do too many bad things. He stood when Rose entered, gestured to a chair. "Miss Whitmore, I received your letter." He tapped a stack of papers on the desk. "I've also received sworn statements from Martha O'Brien, Eliza Hartman, and Joseph Walsh. I've examined the journal you claim belonged to Grace Sterling." He leaned back, studying Rose. "You've built a strong case, but I need to be clear about something. Victor Sterling is a wealthy man with powerful friends. Taking him down won't be easy. I understand. Do you?" Riddick's voice was hard. "The moment I arrest him, every lawyer between here and Washington will descend on this town. They'll paint you as a scorned woman, a lunatic, a liar. They'll drag your name through the mud. They'll make you wish you'd never spoken up. They can't make me wish that." Rose met his eyes. "I've already lived through the worst thing Victor Sterling can do to a woman. Everything else is just noise." Riddick studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "All right, here's what's going to happen. I'm riding to Sterling Manor with Sheriff Dalton and 2 deputies I brought from Cheyenne. We're going to arrest Victor Sterling on federal charges of illegal arms dealing and conspiracy to commit murder." He paused. "I need you to stay here. Stay safe. If this goes wrong, if Sterling gets word and runs, I need someone alive who can testify." Rose wanted to argue, wanted to be there when they put handcuffs on Victor, wanted to see his face when he realized he'd lost. But she also understood strategy. She was the witness. She was the evidence. She needed to survive. "I'll stay," she said. "Cole's going to keep you here." Riddick looked at Cole. "Don't let her leave this office." "I won't." After Riddick left with Sheriff Dalton and the deputies, Rose sat in the quiet office and waited. Time moved like cold honey, slow and thick. She counted the boards in the ceiling, counted her heartbeats, counted the minutes, until Cole finally spoke. "You did good." Rose looked at him. He was standing by the window, watching the street, his rifle within reach. "I haven't done anything yet. You survived. You spoke up. You built a case that might actually put a monster away." Cole turned from the window. "That's more than most people do in a lifetime. I'm scared he'll find a way out." "He might." Cole's honesty was brutal but clean. "Men like Sterling usually do. But even if he does, you changed something here. You showed this town that staying silent has a cost. Will it be enough? I don't know. But it's more than we had before you came." They waited 3 more hours. Rose paced despite her injured wrist, despite Cole's advice to sit down and rest. She couldn't rest. Not until she knew. Finally, hoofbeats. 4 horses coming fast down Main Street. Rose rushed to the window. Marshal Riddick dismounted first, his face grim. Behind him, Sheriff Dalton and the 2 deputies. Between them, hands bound, face blank with shock and fury, rode Victor Sterling. He was under arrest, really truly under arrest. Rose's knees went weak. The door opened. Riddick entered, removed his hat. "It's done. Sterling's in custody. We're taking him to Cheyenne tonight, holding him there until the trial." "Did he fight?" Rose asked. "Tried to run." Riddick's mouth twitched. "Made it about 50 feet before my deputy roped him like a steer. It would have been funny if it wasn't so pathetic." "What happens now?" "Now you prepare to testify. Trial will be in 6 weeks, maybe 8. Federal prosecutor will want to interview you, go over your statement, prepare you for cross-examination." He looked at Rose seriously. "It's going to be hard. Sterling's lawyers will try to destroy your credibility. But if you can hold steady, if you can tell your story the way you told it in your letter, we have a real chance of conviction. I'll hold steady. I believe you will." Riddick put his hat back on. "Miss Whitmore, you should know something. We found evidence at Sterling Manor, crates of rifles in the basement, bills of sale hidden in his office, correspondence with buyers we've been trying to track for years. Grace Sterling's journal led us to everything we needed. Without you, he'd still be operating." "Grace deserves the credit," Rose said softly. "I just finished what she started." After Riddick left with his prisoner, after the town had processed the news and the gossip had spread like wildfire through every home and business, Rose stood on the steps of the sheriff's office and looked at Thunder Creek. The same buildings, the same streets, but somehow different now. Lighter, maybe. Like a weight had been lifted. Cole appeared beside her. "You have a place to stay tonight?" "Martha said my room's waiting." "Good." Cole hesitated, then said, "Rose, I need to tell you something." She looked at him, at this man who'd taken her in when she had nothing, who'd stood between her and violence, who'd promised to keep her safe and then actually done it. "I'm going to lose the ranch," he said quietly. "Sterling's mortgage is still valid. The bank will call it in. I don't have $800. I don't have half that." Rose's chest tightened. "I'm sorry, not your fault." Cole looked at his boots. "I knew the risk when I stepped between you and him. I'd make the same choice again. What will you do?" "Don't know yet. Find work somewhere. Maybe head west, try my hand at mining or logging. Lily and I will manage. We always do." Rose thought about Grace's journal, about the evidence that had brought Victor down, thought about the schoolhouse and her students and the tiny salary that wouldn't even make a dent in Cole's debt, thought about all the ways the world punished good people for doing right. Then she thought about the 43 cents in her pocket that first day, about how far she'd come on almost nothing, about what could be built when people refused to quit. "I have an idea," she said. 3 days later, Rose stood in front of the town meeting at Reverend Webb's church and presented a proposal. She'd worked out the numbers with Martha O'Brien's help, checked the math 3 times, made sure it was solid. "Cole Brennan owes $800 to Victor Sterling's bank," she said. Her voice carried through the church. "When Sterling is convicted, his assets will be seized by the federal government. That includes the mortgages he holds on half this town." She paused. "But before that happens, we can buy out those mortgages, pool our resources, pay off the debts together." People shifted in their pews, uncomfortable, uncertain. "I know what you're thinking," Rose continued. "Why should we pay Sterling anything? Why give him $1 more? But here's the truth. If we don't act now, the government will sell those mortgages to someone else. Maybe someone worse than Sterling. Maybe someone who'll foreclose on every property, sell everything, destroy this town piece by piece." "And if we pool our money?" Martha O'Brien asked from the front pew. "If we pool our money, we own the mortgages ourselves. We become our own bank." She looked around the room. "I'm proposing we form a cooperative. Thunder Creek Lending Society. Every person who owes money pays into the cooperative instead of to Sterling. We set fair terms, low interest, payment plans that don't crush families, and the money stays here in this town, helping our neighbors instead of lining the pockets of men like Victor Sterling." "How much would each person need to pay?" Reverend Webb asked. Rose had done the math. "Based on 17 outstanding mortgages totaling $6,000, if we divide it evenly, about $350 per family. But we don't have to divide it evenly. Those who have more can pay more. Those who have less pay what they can. The point is we do it together." The room was quiet. Then Martha O'Brien rose to her feet. "I'm in. I'll put up $400. Doc Hayes was next, his voice firm. $300 from me." Eliza Hartman lifted her hand. $200. One by one, people rose, some pledging money, some pledging labor. some pledging crops or livestock or anything of value they could trade. By the end of the meeting, they'd raised enough to cover every mortgage Victor Sterling held, plus a small surplus for emergencies. Cole Brennan sat in the back pew, his daughter beside him, and watched his town save his ranch. When it was over, when the pledges had been recorded and the plan was set, he found Rose outside the church. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did." Rose looked at him. "You saved my life. Let me save your ranch. It's more than the ranch. It's hope. It's proof that people can build something better than what came before. Isn't that what Grace wanted?" Rose thought about the journal, about a woman who died trying to expose the truth. She wanted Sterling stopped. She wanted Thunder Creek to be free of him. This is how we honor that. Cole looked at Rose for a long moment. Then he did something he'd never done before. He smiled, really smiled, full and genuine and transformative. "Thank you," he said. "You're welcome." The trial took place in Cheyenne 8 weeks later, in a courthouse that smelled like wood polish and desperation. Rose testified for 4 hours, walking the jury through every detail of her marriage to Victor Sterling. The lawyer cross-examined her, tried to paint her as unstable, tried to suggest she'd made it all up for attention or revenge. Rose answered every question with calm precision, her injured wrist still splinted, her voice steady. When they asked about Grace Sterling, Rose pulled out the copied journal and read entries aloud. Grace's voice speaking from beyond death, telling truths Victor had tried to bury. When they asked about the guns, Marshal Riddick presented evidence. Crates of rifles, bills of sale, correspondence with known criminals. When they asked about the other women, Joey Walsh testified. A 14-year-old boy, voice shaking but determined, describing what he'd seen through a window 2 years ago. A man pushing his wife down the stairs, the sound of her neck breaking. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. They came back with a verdict. Guilty on all counts. Illegal arms dealing. Conspiracy. 4 counts of murder in the first degree. Victor Sterling would hang. Rose sat in the courtroom gallery between Cole and Lily and felt something inside her unclench. Not relief, exactly. The dead women were still dead. The years of terror were still real, but justice, at least, had been served. Victor was led away in chains. He didn't look at Rose, didn't acknowledge her presence. To him, she'd already ceased to exist. But Rose existed. She'd survived. She'd testified. She'd won. Outside the courthouse, Marshal Riddick shook Rose's hand. "You did well in there. Most people crumble under that kind of pressure. I've survived worse pressure than lawyers. I believe it." Riddick tipped his hat. "Federal government's seizing Sterling's assets. That includes his house, his business holdings, everything. It'll all be auctioned off. Proceeds go to his victims and their families." Rose thought about Grace's family in Boston, about Sarah's and Mary's people, about Ruth, whoever she'd been. Will it be enough? Money's never enough to replace a life. But it's something. He handed Rose an envelope. "This is for you. Witness fee. It's not much, but it might help." Rose opened the envelope. $200 in federal notes, more than she'd ever held at one time. "Thank you. Thank you, Miss Whitmore. You gave a lot of people hope. That's worth more than money." After Riddick left, Rose stood on the courthouse steps with Cole and Lily. The sun was setting over Cheyenne, painting the sky orange and pink. Spring had arrived for real now, melting the last of the snow, bringing green back to the world. "What now?" Cole asked. "Now I go back to Thunder Creek." Rose looked at him. "I have students waiting, a cooperative to help run, a room at Martha's boarding house that's starting to feel like home." "Just that?" Rose smiled. "What else should there be?" Cole didn't answer immediately. He looked at his daughter, at Lily, who was trying very hard to pretend she wasn't listening. Then he looked at Rose. "I was thinking," he said carefully, "the ranch house is big, bigger than Lily and I need. And you've been living in a boarding house for 2 months. It's cramped, noisy, not exactly comfortable for a woman who's building a new life. Are you offering me a room at your ranch? I'm offering you whatever you want." Cole's voice was steady, but his eyes were uncertain. A room if that's what you need, partnership in the ranch if you want to help run it, or just someone to stand beside you while you figure out what comes next. Rose looked at this man who'd pulled her from the snow, who'd given her safety without demanding gratitude, who'd risked everything he owned to protect her. She thought about trust and time and all the ways love could grow slowly when given space. "I'd like that," she said. "All of it. The room, the partnership, the someone standing beside me." She paused. "But Cole, I need you to understand something. I'm not looking to be saved. I'm not looking for a man to fix my life. I'm looking for a partner, someone who sees me as an equal." "I know." Cole's smile was small but real. "I've been watching you organize a lending cooperative and testify against a killer and teach children to read. I know exactly what you are, Rose Whitmore. You're the strongest person I've met, and I'd be honored to stand beside you as an equal." Lily tugged on Rose's sleeve. "Does this mean you're coming to live with us, if you'll have me?" Lily threw her arms around Rose's waist. "I'll have you. I've been asking Papa for weeks when you'd come home." Rose's eyes burned. She blinked hard. Home. The word sounded foreign and familiar at once. They rode back to Thunder Creek together, 3 people on 2 horses, the federal notes in Rose's pocket, and the future stretching ahead like an unmapped road. The trial was over. Victor was sentenced. The cooperative was functioning. Spring was here. But the real work was just beginning. The work of healing, of building, of learning to trust again after trust had been shattered. Rose knew it would take time, knew there would be bad days mixed with good, knew the scars Victor had left, both visible and hidden, would ache for years. But she also knew she wouldn't face any of it alone. Thunder Creek appeared in the distance as the sun set, a small cluster of buildings huddled against the vast Wyoming landscape. It wasn't much to look at. A church, a school, a handful of shops, and people trying their best to survive in hard country. It was home. 6 months later, on a Sunday in September, when the aspens were turning gold and the air smelled like wood smoke and harvest, Rose married Cole Brennan in the Thunder Creek schoolhouse. The ceremony was simple. Reverend Webb presiding, Martha O'Brien as witness, Lily as flower girl carrying wildflowers instead of roses. The whole town attended, cramming into the small building, standing along the walls when the benches filled. Rose wore a dress Eliza Hartman had made, deep blue with silver buttons, fitted perfectly to her frame. Her wrist had healed, leaving only a small bump where the bone had knit itself back together. A reminder, a scar, proof she'd survived. Cole wore a black suit borrowed from Doc Hayes, his beard freshly trimmed, his eyes steady and kind. When Reverend Webb asked if he took this woman to be his lawful wedded wife, Cole said, "I do," without hesitation. When Webb asked Rose the same question, she looked at Cole, at Lily, at the town that had stood with her when standing with her had cost something. She thought about the girl who'd stepped off the train 3 seasons ago with 43 cents and a broken body. Thought about how far she'd traveled, how much she'd fought, how much she'd won. "I do," she said. Her voice carried through the schoolhouse, strong and certain. "I choose this freely. For the first time in my life, I am choosing my own future." Cole kissed her, not the desperate grab of possession, but the gentle press of partnership. A promise sealed with respect. The town cheered. Lily threw wildflowers. Martha O'Brien cried into her handkerchief. Doc Hayes shook Cole's hand so hard, Rose worried he'd break something. The reception was held on the main street. Tables set up outside the general store. Food brought by every family. Joey Walsh played fiddle while people danced. The cooperative had its first successful harvest. Debts were being paid down, and Sterling Manor had been sold to a family from Denver who didn't know its history and hopefully never would. As the sun set and the dancing continued, Rose slipped away to the edge of town, to the church cemetery where white headstones stood in neat rows. She found the one she was looking for quickly. Grace Sterling, 1861 to 1883, beloved wife. Rose knelt in the grass beside it. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for writing it down, for trusting Eliza, for fighting until the very end. I finished what you started. He can't hurt anyone else now." The wind picked up, rustling through the aspens, carrying the sound of fiddle music from town. Rose stood, brushed dirt from her blue dress, and turned back toward Thunder Creek. Cole was waiting at the edge of the cemetery, Lily beside him. They didn't ask what she'd been doing. They just fell into step beside her, the three of them walking together toward home. Rose thought about the letter she'd received last week from her sister in Boston, an invitation to visit, to reconnect, to rebuild what had been broken when Rose left. She'd write back, send her thanks, maybe plan a trip next spring. But her home was here now, with these people, on this land. In this life she'd chosen with her own hands. The bride who came in the snow had melted the winter. Spring had come. Summer had passed. And now autumn was settling over Thunder Creek like a benediction, golden and bright and full of possibility. Rose had arrived in this town with nothing but 43 cents and the will to survive. She was leaving her old life behind with a teaching position, part ownership in a ranch, a lending cooperative she'd helped build, a husband who saw her as equal, a daughter who called her Mama Rose, and a future that stretched ahead, unmarked and unmapped, and entirely her own to shape. She'd survived Victor Sterling. She'd survived the hunting cabin. She'd survived every attempt to break her, to silence her, to erase her. And now she would do more than survive. She would live, fully, freely, fiercely. The music swelled from Main Street. Someone called Rose's name. Cole took her hand, Lily took her other hand, and together they walked back into the celebration, back into the light, back into a life Rose had earned with blood and courage and the simple refusal to quit. Behind them the sun set over the Wyoming mountains, painting the ski in shades of orange and gold. Ahead, Thunder Creek glowed with lamplight and laughter and the promise of tomorrow. The bride who came in the snow had found her home, and she would never be cold again.